Hope you all are having a great weekend. Welcome to another episode of Murder, Mysteries, and More. My name is Kaylee.
And my name is Desi.
The tables have turned, and we will be cracking open one of the FBI's most famous disappearances, D.B. Cooper. Where is he? Before we get into this case, we always encourage those who have useful information to any unsolved case. Please report it to your local police and sheriff department.
We also want to mention the importance of finding any missing person, whether they are innocent or a criminal. Solving this case could help the FBI crack open other unsolved cases.
A man by the name of Dan Cooper bought a $20 ticket on Wednesday, November 24th, 1971. The plane ticket was for North-West Orient Airlines Flight 305. It was from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. Dan Cooper was described as a man in his 40s wearing a business suit. He also was wearing a black raincoat with brown shoes, a white shirt, and a black tie.
Dan Cooper had a black briefcase and 12 by 14 and a paper bag on him. Cooper sat in seat 18C, and he ordered a bourbon and soda. At 3 p.m., just after the plane had taken off, he handed the flight attendant, Florence Schaffner, a note. Not thinking much of it, she placed the note in her pocket. He whispered, "Miss, you better look at the note. I have a bomb."
Cooper then asked her to sit next to him. There he opened his briefcase and showed her red-colored sticks surrounded by wires. After he showed her them, Cooper explains, "Write down everything I say and take it to the captain. I want $200,000 in cash placed in a bag by 5 p.m. I want 2 back parachutes, 2 front parachutes. When we land, I want a fuel truck ready to refuel. No funny stuff or I'll do the job."
Something extremely odd about this is he asked for all the bills to be broken down in $20 bills. The flight lands in Seattle and the exchanged the money for the 36 passengers. He also received the parachutes he requested. Cooper held some of the crew members and forced the plane to take off to Mexico City. He then instructed them to fly the plane below 10,000 feet. Halfway through the flight, he put on a pair of dark sunglasses.
8 p.m. the flight was between Seattle and Reno, Nevada. Cooper parachuted out the back doors of the Boeing 727 plane with the money. This would be the last time anyone would see D.B. Cooper. An important detail to note is that Cooper took off his black JCPenney clip tie before jumping out of the airplane, and this produced a partial DNA sample for the FBI.
FBI labeled the case as NORJAC, which stands for Northwest Hijacking. Immediately, the FBI searched the plane for any evidence to help them figure out who this man was. The FBI also released the serial numbers of the $20 bills, and any bills found with these numbers would be destroyed.
In 1980, 9 years after the hijacking, a young boy found a rotting package. Inside that package was $20 bills that matched those same serial numbers Cooper took. There was $5,880 in this package. It was near a beach by Tina Bar. Many theorize that when he jumped out, the money fell in Washougal River.
FBI looked deeper into this, and after searching all the beaches, they discovered nothing. 1972, a year after the hijacking, several letters of random people claiming to be D.B. Cooper or related to him in some way or another appeared. In 1972, the FBI took 2 men in custody, Donald Sylvester Murphy and William John Lewis. They were arrested for impersonating Cooper and selling the story to a tabloid.
The FBI considered more than 800 people to be potential suspects for the first 5 years. All but 24 were no longer suspects to be considered. Something interesting about this case is the initials D.B. Cooper aren't actually his actual initial. It was an accidental mistake from the wire.
Flight attendants spent time with him on the plane, Florence Schaffner and Tina McLeod. They were interviewed separately. They described him as a white male, 5'10", 170 pounds, and brown eyes. If Cooper were to be found during the first 5 years of his disappearance, he would be charged with air piracy. However, no one was found, so the grand jury switched it to violation of the Hobbs Act.
The Hobbs Act means that Cooper violated the law by transporting money across state borders. This allows the FBI to charge Cooper even if he is found tomorrow or next week, even though the investigation has been called off. William Scott, the pilot, states that he chose the route the plane took and not Cooper.
Former FBI agent Russell Callum and former probation officer Bernie Rhodes wrote a book about the case and were set on Richard being guilty. 1972, 5 months after Cooper's escape, McCoy was arrested for hijacking an airplane. Both hijackings were very similar. McCoy jumped out a parachute on the back of the plane using the staircase of a Boeing 727.
McCoy also requested for parachutes, passed a note to flight attendants claiming a bomb was on board, and both notes stated, "No funny stuff." What's crazy is that McCoy's family identified an object left on Cooper's plane. It was never publicly identified. However, on Wikipedia, it was believed to be a Brigham Young University medallion with McCoy's initials. However, McCoy did not match the physical descriptions of Cooper, so he was ruled out.
McCoy was caught immediately after his hijacking and sentenced to 45 years. He escaped prison, but then died in Virginia Beach after he was shot by FBI agent. The second suspect is Dwayne Weber. He claimed to be D.B. Cooper on his deathbed. His wife, Jo, stated he pulled her and whispered, "I have a secret to tell you. I am Dan Cooper."
Jo, his wife, states Dwayne had nightmares about leaving fingerprints on a plane, that his initials were found in a book in the library on a D.B. Cooper book, that he took her to Tina Bar where the money was found. Jo also claims that he had an old North-West Airline ticket for no reason. FBI agent Ralph Himmelsbach states Dwayne fits the physical description, criminal background, and believes some of Weber's story. However, he came to conclusion it was not him.
Kenneth Christensen is the third suspect. His brother Lyle Christensen watched an episode on Unsolved Mysteries and was convinced his brother was D.B. Cooper, and claims that on Kenneth's deathbed he said, "There is something you should know now, but I can't tell you." Kenneth was a purser for North-West Airlines. Kenneth loved bourbon and bought a house shortly after the crime.
A flight attendant states that Kenneth is the closest out of all suspects to match Cooper, but she also states she really does not feel like he is the one. There are many theories evolving around this case, from him dying to him surviving, or this being an FBI staged hijack. Here are some questions.
Why did he choose to go to Mexico City? There was no direct flights to Mexico City. I believe that he chose to go to Mexico City because it's outside the U.S. and maybe he felt like he had more of a chance of escaping if he went there. Also, maybe he could have better disguised himself or changed his appearance to get away from the authorities. But also, at the same time, it could have been random.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why he might have chosen Mexico City is a lot of criminals do actually choose to go outside of state borders to escape from their crimes, and it's because once they go into another country, then it's a lot more complicated to make charges against them. Unfortunately, in Mexico, there is a lot of crime and along especially the borders and everything. Another reason as well is in Mexico, he would have been able to, if he successfully got the money and survived and he's still alive, he would have been able to transfer the money over there, because in the US borders he would have immediately been caught by the banks because how quickly we are able to keep track of money based off of serial numbers. But if he went to another country, then he would have been able to change the currency and everything. Mexico is also cheaper as well. Maybe he had plans to go to Mexico City and retire and live a nice life on the beach. If Cooper jumped out of the plane, did he survive? It was known that it was dark, cold, and rainy that night. A lot of people feel like he didn't survive because the conditions out there were not favorable. Parachuting, you gotta be really experienced to kind of just jump out of a plane and land. This isn't like your normal extravagant skydiving. This is like full on just jumping out of a plane really fast. Since we haven't found who this person is, he is a very intelligent man. So who's to say that he wasn't great at parachuting? He could have been really good. When they were flying the plane, they were flying it below 10,000 feet. It wasn't as high of a jump. If he did die, wouldn't we have found his parachute by now? His parachute could have blended in because it was in a wooded area. He could have later on died from the elements, but with that kind of amount of money, more likely he would have found a way out if he did survive.
I feel that way as well. I feel like if he definitely did not survive, they would have found remains probably close to that $5,880 that they found. Where did all the money go? Only $5,880 was found. Back onto the question before. I feel like since he more than likely survived, he probably took the money, probably exchanged the money out from US dollars to whatever the currency is wherever he was, whether it be Mexico or somewhere else. And then he might have invested it into his savings, maybe bought a house, started a family possibly, invested that into his family. He more than likely spent it, or more than likely he could have also possibly hid the money as well.
Yeah, and like a question we had earlier about him choosing to go to Mexico City, he probably still was making his way through there, and since he had a lot of money, he could have easily hired someone, some shush money, I would call it shush money, be quiet, and have them drive him all the way to the border and give them like a nice paycheck, and then take the rest and do whatever he wants to do with it. And that's why we don't see it, because he just exchanged it with other criminals. The kind of area where it was in between, when he jumped out between Seattle and Nevada, like Nevada and Arizona, there is a lot of casinos that are owned by Native American reservations. During those kind of times in Vegas, there was definitely a lot less regulations there as well, so easily the money could have slipped through. He could have traded it with someone else. There's multiple ways to exchange currency. The way that this man committed this crime, he definitely knew what he was doing, so somehow he exchanged the money. He's probably living out a great life right now. How did the $5,880 appear at Tina B? A lot of people think the reason why some of that money survived and kind of went that way is when he jumped out, he lost some of the money and it kind of went every which way. It went into the Washougal River. So there is like a theory that kind of basically happened. Maybe he exchanged some of, like I said, the money to some other criminal or some citizen that was going to basically help escort them, and maybe like they came back and they saw, oh no, like the FBI is like really searching for him and they have the serial numbers, I need to get rid of this money, and so they just kind of threw it in the river. They didn't want to get charged with anything, scared for their lives, because this man was capable of doing a whole plane hijacking. Obviously, if they were driving him to Mexico City, they would be scared, so they might have just thrown the money out in the river, and that's why it's there.
Yeah, he also could have thrown the money off in the river to throw the FBI off, possibly, into thinking that he may be nearby or that he may no longer be alive. It may have been some sort of tactic, but also he could have very accidentally lost that money too.
Yeah, and I do like how you mentioned that he could have done that to throw the FBI off, because since that money was found there and there was no other money found circulating, a lot of people think he died because of that, and if he's dead, the FBI only has so much funding, and so that's why they kind of stopped doing the case.
If he survived, where is he now? If he did survive, I feel like because of the direction that he wanted the plane to go and the city that he wanted to land in, I feel like he could very easily be in Mexico, but he could also be in another country, such as like a South American country. He could even be in Japan for all we know, girl. I feel like he's off somewhere, living his life, acting like it never happened. He's probably old as fuck now. He might even be dead. We don't even know. It is 2022, and this happened a long time ago.
Yeah, he definitely is not in the US. He's most likely either in Mexico or South America, most likely, because a lot of those countries in Central America and South America, you do not realize how far US dollars will go there. They will go very far, and $200,000 today would be worth $1.3 million. Obviously, he's living like Larry. He might be dead now, though, because he was in his 40s when this happened, and this happened in the 70s. I definitely, though, think that he probably is somewhere in that vicinity.
Shit, he could be old man living it up in the strip club.
Why did D.B. Cooper want the money? So Tina Mucklow asked Cooper why he had chosen North-West Airlines and why he chose to get the $200,000 from them. He said, quote unquote, "It's not because I have a grudge towards your airlines. It's because I have a grudge." The reason why he wanted the money, he had a grudge towards someone. Whether that had been a woman who had cheated on him. He could have had something really messed up happen to him as a kid. We don't know a lot of information about Dan Cooper because we don't know exactly who he is. So for all we can know is both of his parents could have died when he was younger, and he could have had PTSD, really hated the world, and had a psychotic break. A lot of criminals, they have a lot of trauma in their childhoods, so I definitely believe it was some sort of childhood trauma that was holding him back, or it had to do something with a relationship that he had, but most likely it's something potentially even involving murder. Maybe somebody murdered his parents and he wanted to get back at the world.
Yeah, that's very true. He could have definitely done that. He could have had somebody who worked for the airlines, which is why he said he didn't have a grudge towards the airlines. He just had a grudge. So it could have been somebody that worked at the airlines, whether it was present or in the past. Or he even could have woke up one day and just decided he wanted to hijack a plane and get rich.
He wanted to become James Bond.
Why did so many people claim to be D.B. Cooper? It is a very, very unsettling how many people called to claim to be D.B. Cooper. I feel like people did it just to get attention, possibly, whether they were bored with their lives or they had something internal going on with them, if you know what I'm saying. So weird how many people claim to be him.
Yeah, I think the main reason why people claim to be D.B. Cooper is clout. They just want to be famous. There's many famous criminals back in the day, especially even like the old Western cowboys, all that stuff. And people are like, oh man, it would be so cool to be just related to them. It's totally badass just so that they can become famous and get clout for it. It's stupid, but pretty much everyone who has claimed to be D.B. Cooper or claimed to be related to him, even like that one suspect's brother who watched an episode of Unsolved Mysteries and was like, OMG, my brother is Dan Cooper. Like, I don't think you should be that excited for your brother to be D.B. Cooper. What is the item that the McCoys identified on Cooper's airline? It was never stated what it was. So earlier I mentioned how a little bit about Corey being a suspect, but he was ruled out later on. And his family actually went on Cooper's airplane and they said that they recognized an item. And on Wikipedia, which Wikipedia is not 100% accurate, the internet just is not. Anyways, it was believed to be a medallion from the university that McCoy was attending, but I don't believe that that is true. I believe it's probably just some random item, such as maybe a pen he wrote the note with. It probably wasn't anything too important because they never later on released it. It didn't lead them into anything. And there's all sorts of random crap you could find. Like, you could literally find a candy wrapper from a criminal and you're not going to get a lot of information from that.
Did someone change their appearance and name to hijack the plane and be a DB Cooper? People do it all the time. Not in hijacking situations, but they do it all the time to be con artists, like stealing money from people. They do it just in general sometimes as like a dress-up thing or whatever. But it's very possible for someone to change their name and appearance to hijack a plane. You can fake identification, although nowadays it's very, very hard. But back in those days, it was a little bit easier to fake names and all that stuff and identities. And it's very easy to change your appearance, especially like your haircut and other things as well that don't require like plastic surgery. So it's very possible.
If someone could have changed their appearance to be him, that might be why the FBI was never able to find who exactly Dan Cooper was, because this person put on a wig, they put on their sunglasses, they just changed their appearance. It would have been a little bit of extra work to do this. When someone is missing, usually a family or a friend or relative will come forward because they're looking for them. How come no one has came forward saying, like, my relative Dan Cooper was gone? One of the reasons why they might not have is maybe this person was really scared what was going to happen. Like, maybe they were just really scared in general. It definitely would be a scary thing finding out, like, oh, your relative just hijacked a plane, stole a bunch of money, they had a bomb on them. Like, that would be super scary. They're like gone and you might be scared because you don't want to say anything. You might be like, oh, I don't want this relative come back and murder me, or you might be scared for your life, or you just are in so much shock that you just can't believe it. Like I said before, maybe someone did murder his parents before. Maybe he didn't have a family. Maybe he didn't have friends. I do feel like usually there is someone. There's instances where some people just don't have anybody with them and it just always ends very badly because they have no support system.
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons why. What you said was very good. He could have been an orphan, had no family, no relatives, no parents. Could have made no friends, could have stayed to himself. Why did he want the bills split in 20s? It was over $200,000. I feel like he probably wanted them split in 20s. Could have been that less bills that he would have to carry in a suitcase. Or maybe he just liked $20 bills.
Yeah, I feel like with the 20s, it was probably easier to count. He wanted to do small transactions of over time to put it into his bank account. And if he just straight up went with a bunch of hundreds, it would have just seemed super suspicious. But when it comes to 20s, like, it just seems very normal. Generally speaking, yes, most people do check $20 bills. I know as a cashier I had to check every 20. However, there are instances where some people, they do forget to check the 20s, but usually they do come at the end of the night. But he most likely wanted it because he was probably going to do smaller transactions over time to put it into his bank account, retirement account, whatever you want to call it. Why did he want multiple parachutes? So he had requested for 2 front parachutes and 2 back parachutes. One of the reasons why he might have requested different parachutes is because he probably wanted multiple parachutes just in case. Sometimes parachutes don't always deploy. That was just to make sure it would deploy. Or he might have put some of the money on another parachute. He only used 2 of them. Or maybe he thought of maybe take one of the crew members on the plane as hostage, but then last minute changed his mind. That's another reason why he could have requested more parachutes.
What theory do we believe in? I believe that Mr. Dan D.B. Cooper is living his life out under a different identity. He may have met a pretty woman somewhere in Mexico or another country, had a family, settled down, slowly deposited his bills into his bank account slowly through different transactions. He might have even had another job, retired, and peacefully died, knowing that he got away with it.
Yeah, I think that D.B. Cooper probably did survive the fall from the parachute. I do believe that he had some sort of plan. So, for one, I think that he had a rough childhood, was just frustrated. Maybe someone from the airline, like the general airport, was connected to him somehow, and he thought just by having that grudge, he decided to hijack this plane because it was an easy target and a lot easier back then. He probably was going to either split it with some other criminals and kind of exchange the money, or I was thinking maybe he had some sort of offshore account he set up with someone to drive him to the borders of Mexico and drop him off, had the money, and he was living like Larry with a nice beach house, and he was the one that got away.
Thank you for watching Murders, Mysteries, and More. Remember to always keep your eyes open because you never know when someone's watching.